Hello and welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. My name is Jess and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information that I want to cover with you. All right, let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. So if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Now, keep in mind that if you do have any technical issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on today, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's EcoCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over a live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. Now, if we don't get to your question during the live webinar today, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us will be following up after we wrap. All right, next up, there's going to be lots of cool aha moments on the EcoCast today. And if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there on your audience console, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically added to your post. All right, our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some awesome resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. Now, if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout today's EcoCast. I'm going to tell you a bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be here live in attendance at the EcoCast in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you don't know what those full T's and C's are, that's fine. We've got the full thing for you. Just head on over to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we actually have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. So in today's EcoCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all questions asked after we wrap the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and you would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we'll get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the EcoCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going, so let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content and resources right after we wrap the EcoCast today, be sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and, hey, grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in your handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar. And both you and your coworker or friend could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend because, it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your handouts tab, fill out a quick application, and the Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should probably be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you get to choose to join in, like surveys, test runs, new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you'll learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker on your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and as I said, they are completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in that handouts tab as well. All right, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get going.
Well, I hope you are all ready for this because today we are talking about automating your way to better security, tips, tricks, and tools. Automation, when done correctly, saves us incredible amounts of time and money. However, we can often be reluctant to let go of a process and hand it over to a virtual machine. What if it makes a mistake? Will the tool do what it's supposed to? How long will it take to calibrate? What if it can't be trusted? Well, let's throw the negative what ifs out the window and think what the benefits would be of automating manual processing on our team. Furthermore, what if we had a watchful eye that never rests, able to detect threats and respond quickly to them? What if you had automations to enforce compliance requirements? Now we're talking. It can be tough to know where to begin, so luckily, the awesome folks at KnowBe4, Okta, Rubrik, Automox, and Cohesity have sent some of their top experts to help us navigate this conversation and share the best tools and strategies to automate your approach to security today. This is going to be a great day, and I cannot wait to get started. So let's dive right in. Let me start by saying hi, and my name is Mackenzie Puddesy. I am a moderator here at Actual Tech Media, and my fellow moderators, Jess Steinbach, Scott Becker, and Keith Ward will be here with us to go through on live chat today. Okay, let's talk prizes. I know you were all waiting for that. Today on the EcoCast, if you could win one of three $300 Amazon gift cards, would that not excite you? Well, of course, you can do that. And as mentioned in the housekeeping chat this morning, you can find the full T's and C's linked in the handouts tab if you have any questions about that at all. And hey, with that last little thing, I believe we are ready to rock. Today, we have the incredible Larry Seltzer, a security researcher, here to open things up as our keynote presenter. And I've got my fellow moderator, Keith Ward, here waiting in the wings to pose some questions to Larry and make this conversation just a little bit extra awesome. So Keith, Larry, I'm handing things over to you, and I look forward to what you've got ready for us to open up our minds. All right, Keith, Larry, take it away.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this keynote discussion about automating your way to better security. I'm Keith Ward with Actual Tech Media, and I'm thrilled to be joined by one of my favorite industry folks, author, writer, and security guru, Larry Seltzer. He was also a CISSP. Larry, it is so great to have you here today. So first question up for you. Is it even possible to do proper security these days without automation? It may seem like an obvious question, but I think it's one worth asking.
Well, it's certainly not a practical or rational way to go about IT security, and for lots of reasons. The most obvious one, as I see it, is speed of response. Attacks can come in at any time, any day of the week, and it's possibly at like a sudden high volume. So if you don't have systems in place to respond automatically, you're bound to have bad outcomes. Automated security tools can detect, analyze, and respond to threats much faster than manual processes. And so they minimize the window of exposure. And well, like I just said, automation gets you not just fast response, but better and more scalable response. If an attacker hits you from multiple networks in multiple countries and with many different kinds of attacks, you can only stop them with a sophisticated computer system that knows how to recognize and stop the attacks. The same systems will also be more consistent and accurate than humans, and who often get tired or distracted. They're almost always tied into vendors who automate updates to reflect current intelligence and attack profiles. And one more thing, and this is a big deal for a lot of companies, increasingly, is that they can automate much of the regulatory compliance and monitoring that you have to do, and which is getting more onerous and complicated every year. In fact, I would say without automation, it's definitely not possible to do compliance anymore.
Great points. So we the buzzword of the day, of the year, of the last couple of years is AI, right? AI
Since
and
when?
ML. So AI is certainly being used in lots of products now for security automation, as well as seemingly every other area of IT. But I wanted to ask you, is more AI always better when it comes to security automation?
If I remember correctly, I wrote my first story on use of AI and ML, which is machine learning, which builds the models in security in 2018, and it made the same good sense that then that it does now. The main idea is that IT activities generate a ton of data that must be analyzed in order to find security incidents. There's so much that people don't generally log everything because they figure they'll never be able to do anything with it. Some of this analysis happens in real time, like in say a process that's analyzing live network traffic, like a firewall, various kinds of firewalls, or antivirus program on your system that looks at activities like file I/O. But very often it's post hoc analysis of these log files, and we've had non-AI tools for doing this sort of thing. You tell them what to look for, and they look for it at scale. But there are limitations in them, if only for the sake of system performance. Like you're not going to you're not going to log everything because the storage and processing cost of it. And even the best ones will miss attacks. The best conventional tools will miss attacks that a really top-notch human analyst would find after spending hours of time staring at code and logs and using different tools to analyze them. So the idea with AI is that machine learning can look at petabytes of log files and program code and network traffic and learn how to do what the really smart human analysts do at the speed and scale of computer, conventional tools. Maybe even find new ways to recognize attacks that humans didn't see. And I'm sure, at least at first, it would be worth doing both conventional and ML, and that's probably what's happening. How far along are the AI approaches? It's obvious there's a lot of it, going on already with the analysis, but it's not clear that it's substantially supplanted conventional tools yet. It may turn out, the models themselves consume more resources than conventional alternatives, and they'll lose out eventually, especially on lower end systems and embedded devices. So, yeah, answering your question, you're almost certainly using AI and ML already if you're using Microsoft Office or Gmail or Facebook and all those big things. And there's a lot more non-AI security going on, and it's probably going to be that way for a long, long time.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. Given the current environment that you've been discussing, these highly distributed environments, attacks coming from anywhere and everywhere, and threats in every corner of the globe, from state actors to script kiddies to everything in between. What should a comprehensive automated security tool look like? What should that tool do?
Well, it should do some of the things we've already talked about. It should scale as the load on it increases. It should report to you on what it's doing. And that can get complicated. There's a trade-off between the amount of information the tool should be giving you, and the thoroughness of the reporting, because you don't want to overwhelm people with reporting data, or they won't, they're not going to pay attention to it. Um, there's very often these products also, they're completely script based, and even when you're doing something in the user interface, it's generating a script. But the automation is always going to have some scripting element, and the really good tools have a big collection of vetted security scripts, sample scripts that you can adapt to your needs. And security processes are often, they're not just about detecting problems. They're about, the automated tools can automate the remediation process of a lot of problems. It can adapt to new kinds of threats. Partly it could do that through AI, recognizing changes and it being threatening. The good vendors it's going to happen mostly by the vendors passing on intelligence into the updates to the tools. And once I'm going to talk about compliance again, these tools have a big role in compliance monitoring and reporting, and the vendor should have a good sense of how the tool can help you and how you can use it in compliance with the regulatory regimes that apply to you. Right. So you're going to involve your compliance people in the process to that extent.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Finally, today, Larry, a lot of the attendees today on this event and a lot of companies are right in the middle of the process of looking at these automated security tools. So for those companies in that phase right now, they're looking around. They're not sure what to get, how much money they should spend. What kind of warnings or advice would you give them during this sort of research and buying phase of new security automation tools?
Right. There isn't one coherent category of security automation tools. There's incident response. There's the whole DevSecOps tool chain part to it. These tools often get combined into larger systems like IAM, which is Identity and Access Management Systems, where they're kind of core to the function of the system. So this raises a question you're asking you have to ensure that it's going to work with your existing systems. Is this a tool that's going to be part of your tool, your DevSecOps tool chain, your IAM processes? If you don't have a formal test network to use for checking these things, then I like the idea of creating a network group of guinea pigs, sophisticated users to whom you can subject changes like this, and you keep them informed, and they look out for unexpected behavior. I'm the kind of guy who gets that, who volunteers for that sort of thing, and everybody's got some, I'm sure. The DevSecOps tool chain, it's it's all about security automation tools, and it's a really good idea in a case like that to have test instances that you can use for testing the tool chain itself. Otherwise, it's like working on your car while you're driving it. And you also, just as a general rule in automation, you need to have a sense of what processes are the most time consuming, where you're losing time, and what processes are most amenable to automation. If you have no idea about these things, then there's a good case for calling in a consultant. So remember, the point is to improve the quality and the performance of the process. So you need to get a sense of what you can expect in that regard before you spend any real money.
Right, exactly. Don't just break out the credit card and start putting a lot of stuff on it when you don't know exactly how it's going to work, what it's going to do. Minimize those surprises. That is such great stuff today, Larry. Thank you so much for your insights and your overview of this topic. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
Okay, it's always good to be here.
Thank you. Okay, folks, so there you go. Now that you have an idea of what you need to do to better secure your operations, let's get back to the event. I know you're all going to enjoy it. Back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you so much, Keith. That was fantastic. Really practical, really insightful, and definitely timely in terms of how to take these first steps or how to approach developing this strategy. Now, you may have noticed there is a poll up here. The poll is, what's your time frame for adding new or updating your existing IT solutions at your company? Just to get your thoughts there. Are you looking to get this done right away in the next 6 months, maybe by the end of the year, in a couple of years, or are you still just not sure? You're getting a sense of the landscape, getting a sense of what tools and strategies are out here for you to implement. And then from there, you're going to make some more metered decisions around your timelines. So I'm going to leave that up for just a second more, and then I'm going to have our first presenter popping on out here. Now, one thing I do want to remind you of today is that the more interactive you are, the more interesting and the more energetic this gets to be for everyone out here in the audience. And we do have Q&A sessions with the majority of our teams here today. Sometimes, they go a little over time or they can't stick around, but all of the questions are also put up for a best question gift card for each session, a $50 Amazon gift card. So if you have some insightful, thoughtful questions, please do put those in, and we'll be excited to have those answered through or by each of the different teams as they present. Now, with that, I'm excited to introduce to you our first presenter on today's EcoCast. From the Know Before team, we have Jeffrey Jelinis. This is also your reminder, Jeffrey's here, so answer those or send in those questions. And with that, Jeffrey is going to be taking the floor. So Jeffrey, take it away. I'm so excited to hear about Security Coach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Know Before on Security Coach. So today we'll be talking about Security Coach, a product where you're able to deliver real-time coaching in response to your users' risky behavior. First, a few different little slides about Security Coach, and then we'll actually jump right into the platform itself and show us some of the key workflows and features that you'll see inside of the product. But in general, with Security Coach, you can definitely leverage your existing security stack to deliver those real-time coaching messages to your users based on their real-world behavior. And we're able to also track and report on that improved real-world security behavior across organizations, since we're looking at your holistic organization population and seeing, how are your users doing across different divisions, different departments, and looking at that information that's coming in across your security stack to determine, is this user actually engaging in risky behavior? Are they being targeted by a bad actor? And also really help you gain some of that additional value from your existing investments in those existing security products and services that you already have deployed in your organization. So a little bit more in depth on how exactly does it work, right? So we have risky user behavior that's happening across the network or on the endpoint or even through email. And across those, we'll have these different vendor integrations that you can bring those events into our system. And from that, we will analyze those events, and either it'll match a detection rule or not. And based on that match to the detection rule, we'll determine if we should send a message to the user as a security tip over Teams, Slack, email, Google Chat. And that'll be received by the end user, and we'll include a graphic and some notification text around why they're receiving this message and what exactly it is that they could potentially do to avoid receiving this message in the future. And these are the different things that we do send out to the users. We have a pretty big catalog of security tips. Some of them are even available in GIF format as well. And we have, it says 200 plus, but we're getting closer to 300 plus now. So definitely be on the lookout for some of those. But we have over 60 different security topics that are covered, and the majority of them are available in 34 plus languages. All right, so without further ado and no more slideware, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll take a look at the platform. All righty, so you should be seeing my screen now. And right here is going to be the Know Before platform. If you're familiar with us at all, we do a few other things like our simulated phishing and awareness trading. But we also have a tab here called Security Coach. And that's where the Security Coach application is going to live, is inside of the Know Before platform. And here would be the dashboard, where it'll have a number of different metrics over the last 90 days in relation to how things are going in your console. So you'll see here that I have a real-time coaching summary, which will show me how many tips I've delivered to my users, my percentage of users that are coached, sitting at around 17% in the last 90 days. Kind of expected. We're not looking for 100% of our users to be coached, because we're really looking to hone in on the specific risky behaviors that we want to shape and change over time. And see, you also see in this like graph here of like the tips that are delivered over time, that as I roll this out, it'll continue to ramp up the more that I look at those risky behaviors, and the more that my users are coached, these behaviors start to trail downward, and you'll just have kind of like a maintenance phase of like, oh, this user did this, now let me go ahead and alert them. Maybe it's their first time doing that, let me go ahead and alert them, versus the influx of risky events that you get at the initial configuration. Over here is going to be your vendor event summary, and that's going to have some tallies around how many events I've received in that time period, how many users are associated with those events. And then also we have a concept of mapping an event versus an unmapped event, and that has to do with, could I understand from the information that I got from your integrated vendor who the user was that I should send a security tip to? And for endpoint vendors, there's some maybe host name mapping that needs to happen, where I can identify the machine as an asset of the user, and from that be able to actually say, okay, that's the person who I should send a security tip to. A really, really straightforward process, though, in terms of being able to identify who it is from the logs that we're receiving. And then a few other things on this page are going to be your top detection rules overall. And these are the things that we are detecting from those integrated vendors, and we're determining our risky behavior that a user should be either coached on or something they should receive awareness for. So it could be things like, sharing sensitive data, or even things like copyright infringement detected if somebody was torrenting or a similar type of behavior of copyright infringement. And these are just from my demo console here. So all this data is a little bit staged. All right. So from that, I guess we can kind of talk about what do you do to get started, right? So inside of the platform, we have a number of different security vendor integrations. Here in my demo console, I actually have a couple of things that are configured, like our CrowdStrike, 365, Zscaler, and of course, our own platform is feeding the phishing failures from any simulated phishing tests into Security Coach. That way we can coach our users if they were to fail on a simulated phish. We, of course, have a number of different available integrations here, and I'll just kind of slow scroll as we go down this page, and you can spot any logos that you may have in your organization. A few popular ones like Cisco Umbrella. We just recently released our FortiGate Cloud integration, and then we also have a couple of different Microsoft flavors of integration as well, as far as Entra ID, Defender for Endpoint, and Cloud App Security. Another web vendor that's pretty popular is Netscope, and we also have a Sophos integration. So these are some of the different things that you can connect to your Security Coach console, and from that turn events that are happening on those tools into coachable moments or opportunities for your end users. All right, so how do I connect these things? Well, a majority of them are simple API connections. So you will go into one of these here, take CrowdStrike, for example. We have an integration guide that's available for all of our supported integrations. Some of them even have a video. Our documentation team is kind of crazy and go overboard with their documentation to make sure it's as easy as possible for you all to get going and roll out our product. So really, really simple here. We even have the instructions in the vendor area for you. And then once you have those tokens, or maybe in this case, it's a client secret and client ID, you're able to go ahead and input those into the console. And that'll connect. And yeah, that's it. You're done. You're connected. Woo, cool. So now that we have active connections and we're starting to get events in from these vendors, we'll start to see that our reports are going to populate. And some vendors, I'm even able to go ahead and pull a history from them as well. So if they support it, I'm able to pull, a certain number of days history here. So that way you can see kind of just like how things have been going if you were to have been using Security Coach to coach your users. So I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the reports that would populate once you've connected your vendors, and then we'll actually get into, now maybe I can turn those into coachable moments. So here in the reports tab, I have one report that's going to be populated right away, and that's going to be our vendor events report. And so if I go and click on that source data here, and I look at, maybe all of my vendors last 7 days, and I hit show report, this is going to show me a breakdown of where exactly I'm getting my events from, and then what exactly am I receiving from them? So here, maybe we have something email forwarding out of the domain, and I can expand that and see the exact information that that vendor has sent to us and the fields that are used for the detection rules that we'll get to in just a second. So now that I'm receiving my events are coming in, and I'm starting to see, a couple of different things are also filling here in my risk overview for vendor type. If I go ahead and take a look at my web security vendors, I'll see here a breakdown of things that are my web risk. I have 39 total users that meet this criteria of having a web risk, and how many events fed that, and also the event count and the number of users that were involved in that particular threat category that we're receiving from our web vendors. I think one of the most interesting things here is, if you remember earlier, I mentioned that only 17% of my users were coached in the last 90 days. That's because a small percentage of your users are a majority of your actual threats that are being detected by these security stack tools. So here you'll see in my demo console, I have 5% of users being linked to 72.9% of web threats. And you can kind of slide this around here and see that, if I were to have coached 21% of my users, I would have hit probably over 100% of my web threats here in terms of what it is that needed to be coached on. So really, really cool way to visualize what it is that we're aiming to do here, where we are looking for that tiny little percentage of people that are making up a majority of your threat distribution. And these are the people that really need that kind of coaching. So now that we have the events coming in and we have these different reports that are being filled, we can kind of start to think about, are we detecting any of those, or are they actually, being hit as a detection rule? So let's go into the detection rules tab here and get a little bit more acquainted with what exactly is a detection rule. Well, detection rules can either be system, which mean that they come from us, or custom. You can make your own, or you can clone ours and add on to them or remove from them, whatever you may like in terms of making these your own. Now, down here, you'll see that I have some system rules for Microsoft 365. And some of these might be around something like DLP, unusual volume of files being deleted. So I can go ahead and view that detection rule here, and we'll see, what exactly it is. And this looks like it's matching on the threat category. And that's coming from the vendor information that we're receiving from 365, which we just looked at on that vendor events report. So now that we know that that's exactly what it's looking at, we know, okay, anytime that I see an event for that, that's going to go ahead and fire on that as a detection. And detections can just continue to accumulate. So you can use those for things like our smart groups functionality, where I can, maybe put users into a particular group based on the number of times that they've had a detection, as well as report on users that have had a certain number of detections or a certain combination of detections. So really, really powerful there in terms of being able to aggregate your users based on the detections that you're seeing. So users don't even really receive anything by having a detection just yet. And that'll be where we get into the real-time coaching aspect of this. Detection rule fires. Now I need to go ahead and send something to my user. All right. So now that I actually have something here for the unusual volume of files being deleted, or maybe something being shared externally, whatever it may be, I can actually kind of go into this real-time coaching area here and start to think about what it is that I want to create campaigns for. Here in my demo console, I have a number of campaigns that are already running, but I'll kind of just run you through, just take one from the top here. Our top recommendation is looking at, you have 12 missed coaching opportunities in the last 30 days for this particular detection rule of external file sharing being detected by 365. Let's go ahead and customize that campaign here. This will bring you to our campaign form, and we'll call this file sharing externally. And this will have a number of different detection rules that are associated with that type of behavior grouped together. You can remove these if you wanted to remove some of these, because these are coming from Zscaler. I want this maybe to be just associated with 365 DLP rules. We also have additional criteria here. If anybody's familiar with our smart groups functionality, you'll see a really similar looking area here where I can choose a particular user field. So maybe I want this to only trigger for people that are not in a particular maybe division. And I say, all right, must not be or equal, this particular thing. I don't have any divisions set inside of my demo console right now, so that's why the list isn't populated. But this is how you can get really granular in terms of who do I want to send my security tips to? Even though they have a detection, can I, maybe put some guardrails in place for those types of behaviors that I don't want to send coaching to a user for. The next thing that you'll do is choose what it is that you want to send to the user. So we have different notification text that's available here. I'm going to choose risky activity detected here. And from that, we have a number of different graphics that are going to be surfaced related to the detection rules that you picked. And so since we have things around like, sharing outside of the organization or, sensitive file sharing, we could look at some of these things around, sharing is not always caring, or unauthorized communication with external organizations can indeed be risky. And we can maybe show off some of the different localization that I have available here. So I've been practicing my French. So let's see what that looks like. There we go. So this will be able to use the user's training locale to determine what message and the translation or localization rather that should be sent to that user. And this is really what it looks like in the end user's view, because this is going to be sent over Teams, Slack, Google Chat, or email. Looks a little bit more like an email, but when it comes to the actual delivery mechanisms here, here's an example of risky activity being detected for a QR code being scanned and the delivery over Google Chat as a delivery method. So you see here we have risky activity detected and the security tip graphic beneath. All right, so very, very similar to what you're seeing here. I'll go ahead and change this back to English. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to choose to send that over Teams. I can fall back to email if there's, for some reason, an issue with me finding that user on Teams. And then from that, I can also choose if I want to, how do I want to limit my delivery? We have by default a 20-minute cooldown on a campaign where, if a user does the same thing within that 20-minute period, maybe we don't want to send them the same security tip again. So I have a cooldown every 20 minutes, or you can choose to limit it to one security tip per day, where users won't receive more than one tip every 24 hours for this campaign if they trigger it. So that is how you would create a campaign. I'm not going to save that since we are in my demo console. I'd show up for everyone else currently using it. But I'll actually show you what one of these campaigns look like once one of them has been running. So let me go ahead and click on my phishing awareness campaign. And here you'll see that this is actually a collection of 3 different vendors' detection rules that are going to be able to trigger. Any one of them can trigger a security tip from this campaign to be sent to a user. See that I've had 31 of those detection rules trigger, which led to 31 security tips being delivered, and 27 users have been coached. So it looks like some people have been doing some things more than once here. Keen-eyed at math. I'm not, but I picked up on that. So next beneath that is going to be the detection rule event summary. And you'll see here that I have the detection rules that are in this campaign, as well as how many times have they been triggered. So you can see all right, well, I have 2 really popular, or maybe 3 really popular ones here. Maybe some of these aren't as popular to really kind of understand what it is that your users are doing that they're being coached for, and who are the top 10 people from this campaign that I've sent tips to. I also see over time the security tips that have been delivered. And I can preview what it is that I was actually sending to that user if I wanted to here. And you'll see that I was talking about maybe enticing messages or phishing. Now, if I wanted to get a bit more granular here and look at all my campaign activity for the last 90 days, I can get pretty deep and see, okay, well, Taylor received a security tip delivered via Slack on a particular date. And for what? Well, there was a clicking of a potentially malicious URL that was detected. And so since this is a demo console, this is just some stage data here. But you would have all of the event information related to what it was that led to that detection. So you have a lot of information here at a glance as to what it is that vendor provided us related to what it was that user was doing and why they received that tip. So a really, really good way for you to get some visibility into what it is that you're sending coaching for to your users. All right, so we've kind of gone through a lot of the whole flow here. We've gone from, looking at the setup to configuring that for your vendor integrations, to then moving to reviewing some of my detection rules and some of the reports related to risk, to then turning those detection rules into real-time coaching campaigns, and even creating a campaign for my top recommendation here of my 12 missed coaching opportunities to give us some more coverage for what is considered a very high risk type of thing in organization of data security and sharing. So now we have our campaigns that are running and we're actually starting to send tips to our users. Let's go ahead and look at some other reports that we may have available here before we run out of time. All right, so a few other things that I wanted to cover here are going to be the detection rules report and the real-time coaching report. So if we go ahead and we take a look at the source data for the detection rules report, This will go ahead and open up in a reporting area, and you'll see the detection rules activity over the last 90 days and what detection rule did that user wind up triggering on. So it looks like this user, Gina, wound up clicking a phishing link in a simulated phishing test from our KnowBe4 platform, our security awareness training platform. And if I wanted to get a little bit more detail around that, I could do that here and expand that. Since it's from our platform, we don't really add a lot of additional metadata associated with it. So maybe I'll filter this here by a particular vendor. Let's go down to maybe say CrowdStrike, and we'll view that report. I could search for a particular person here if I wanted to, but I'll just go ahead and use one of these here as an example. And so here's a password safety that was detected, and then we have all that information related to credential dumping, etc. That was included inside of that event that then led to this detection firing. And you could choose to send something to a user based on that credential theft being detected. Now, very common to our reports inside of the KnowBe4 platform, these can be saved, scheduled, and sent. So if I wanted to save this view of the last 90 days for CrowdStrike, I can hit Save Report. And once I save that report, it'll show up in my Saved Reports area here. And then let's just go ahead and take a look at one of those here. And I could say, all right, let me go ahead and schedule that report to send to maybe I'll send that to my auditors, and I'll send that weekly, and I can send that saved report. And of course, this isn't a named report. You can change the name of this report and what exactly it is, and the type, CSV or PDF, and then that'll be able to just kind of be ready to ship off whenever you've set that cadence, and it'll include that information there for users to review. All right, so I think that about brings us to the end here, where we've covered end-to-end flow of what exactly it is that the Security Coach tool does. We also, of course, do integrate with our existing KnowBe4 platform for security awareness training, and that includes things like also being able to send notifications for training campaigns to your users over the delivery mechanisms like Teams, Slack, and Google Chat. And here's an example of one of those here, where a user would have received a training notification here in the same area that they would have received any other security tips. So really, really good way to centralize your locations around communicating to your end users. And of course, we also talked a lot about what you would do to get started. And since I've already configured my platform, I don't really have a good way to show this other than in a screenshot. But we do have a setup area here where you can kind of go through, and we did the integration of the vendors, we delivery method through Teams, and we reviewed our detection rules, and we created real-time coaching campaigns. Then from that, you'd be considered off to the races here in terms of your setup. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed today's presentation. My name is Jeffrey Chalinas. I'm with the product team here at KnowBe4. And if you have any other questions, feel free to go ahead and reach out. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. It has been great to have you on. That was a really fantastic demo to give the audience a sense of how Security Coach would work for them, and a little bit more of a sense of how KnowBe4 works. Now, we do have a poll up, so we'd love to get your feedback on any additional resources that you would like to explore from KnowBe4. Your feedback is really valuable here. This is kind of your easy button, your wish list. So if you're looking for a data sheet, pricing details, you want to do a personal demo, plunk that in, and the KnowBe4 team will absolutely follow up with you and make sure you get that in good time. That said, Jeffrey does have to take off, so we're not going to have time for a live Q&A session with him, but all of the questions you sent in will be answered by the KnowBe4 team in the next couple of days. So do not worry, any questions you're sending in will be seen, even if they're not chosen to be asked on a live Q&A session here during the EcoCast. And if you do want to learn more right away about the solution of KnowBe4, you can click into that handouts tab. If you haven't been in there yet, there's a handout from each of the teams that'll be presenting here today. Mostly their links or PDFs. So click in there. You probably want to tag them or download all of them so that you can take a look at them after today's EcoCast and make sure you have all the information you're looking for. What you'll find in there is the white paper. It is 4 reasons why Security Coach helps users help themselves. So who doesn't want to help themselves, right? And now I do have some more excitement for you all, other than incredibly interesting information, I've also got some prizes. So we will be giving away, again, 3 $300 Amazon gift cards during today's EcoCast. You do need to be live and present here at the EcoCast to win. So hopefully you are here now to hear your name called out. Our first lucky winner today is Christopher Freeman from Illinois. Congratulations, Christopher. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after the webinar. And do not forget, there are still 2 more chances to win an Amazon gift card. So you've got that, as well as your best question gift cards from each session. So hold your breath, keep your fingers crossed, and hopefully you'll be the next lucky winner today. But for now, let's keep zipping right along and jump into our next presentation here on today's EcoCast. We have got the incredible team from Okta back in the house. Always exciting to have some returning teams and returning presenters. So next in our star-studded lineup today is Emily Ann Clemens. Emily is the product marketing manager of Okta Workflows. Emily and the Okta team, they are having such an incredible tool, this workflow. It's really cool in terms of automation without a ton of coding and heavy lifting. So I'm excited for you to check out how this could work for your security processes. And I'm, of course, just excited to have you here today, Emily. So Emily, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Thanks for tuning in today. My name is Emily Ann Clemens. I'm a product marketing manager here at Okta for our Okta Workflows product, so our no-code automation and orchestration solution. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to this webinar where today we're really excited to talk about how you can use automation to solve some of your most common security challenges with Okta Workflows. Today's agenda looks like this. First, we'll be covering a high-level overview of what Okta Workflows is, what the platform looks like, and some of the really neat creativity we've seen from our customers to date of how they're leveraging workflows. Then we'll showcase some of our innovation on the platform over the last year with some top security use cases and new security solution packs to get started easily. And finally, we'll get into a bit of a roadmap and what you can look forward to for new security features that are coming. As I go through the content today, I really invite you to think about what security operations and tasks you want to automate in your business. Where are you having pain points, and where do you think workflows could really fit in automating and helping make your organization more secure? Of course, we have to show our safe harbor slide. This is just to remind you that some of the content today will be forward-looking, so please keep that in mind when making purchasing decisions. All right, so let's set the scene a little bit. I don't think this comes as a surprise to anyone here today. We know that everyone is working to deliver the best, most secure, and frictionless experiences, not just for your customers, but also for your employees, your partners, your contractors, and vendors, everyone in your ecosystem. And we're all doing this in an economy and in a market that's changing quite literally every day. There's also this pressure and this need to cut costs. And it's not just cutting costs, it's doing that while also having to continue to innovate and grow and scale. And then underpinning all of that need is making sure that your organization and your employees and your customers are staying secure, that you're not getting attacked or having a security breach underway. And succeeding in this really complex landscape that we're talking about not only requires having a really solid identity platform, but at Okta, we think about automation really being the answer to keep up with all of these demands that we just talked about. By eliminating the manual work, IT teams can really scale and innovate and keep things secure. Employees can get faster access to what they need, and companies can maintain that right security and compliance posture that's so important today. However, again, not as a surprise to anyone here, this is a lot easier said than done. And that's because there's a lot of complexity when trying to build a safe and a secure identity solution. And there's so many different touch points, right? There's different users, apps. Those different users have different roles and permission needs. There's multiple systems. And not only do you have all of this technology, but there's the different user types to manage. There's full-time employees, there's vendors, there's contractors, and now everyone is working in a remote workforce. So there's a lot to get right, not just with identity, but making sure that it's done in a really secure way. And what we also know is that getting this right is incredibly critical to every organization today, more important than ever. So you'll see the stats here. 82% of breaches involve a human element. So whether it's the use of stolen credentials, phishing attacks, slow responses to security threats, or even just manual errors, this has huge business implications. And then the financial impact, with the average cost of data breaches costing companies millions of dollars, on average over $4 million. This really goes to show the importance of getting identity and security with identity right today, with these stakes being so high. So this is why we're excited to talk about Okta workflows. With today's challenges, needing to do more with less, delivering on those great customer and employee experiences, all while keeping it secure, this is where Okta workflows comes into play. This no-code identity, automation, and orchestration platform built for IT. At Okta, we think about automation, of course, being tied to identity and managing the complex system with automated responses and triggers so that your teams can manage tasks without writing code, saving time and keeping things secure. Workflows is the automation and orchestration platform that leverages, as you can see here, this no-code drag and drop interface. And our customers really love this product because they're accelerating their time to market. They're using templates and pre-built connectors. They're bolstering and improving their security posture. So whether you're using today scripts and custom code or PowerShell, those things are really error prone, and we're seeing a lot of success with customers that are automating their security operations and triggers from apps and systems being really critical to their success. Customers also love workflows because it's helping them reduce costs. It's helping them automate these manual tasks that may have taken developer resources, extra time and extra days, and it's really saving them a lot of time. So let's take a minute to look at how Workflows actually runs. Workflows is based on simple if this, then that logic. And here you can see an example of what that looks like. So previously, this simple flow may have been done with scripts or code. And here you can see that now this process is automated with Workflows. So in this example, this is for a new employee. They have joined the sales team. And of course, they need access to Salesforce. But with workflows, you can make even smarter, take even smarter actions. So you'll note that the new employee is in EMEA, and you want to assign their territory and quota based on where they are geographically. And then you want to add that user to the correct email and distribution lists so they get the appropriate updates for their new team. And then you want to Slack them a message within Slack, or maybe an email that lets them know when they've joined that they now have these things set up in Slack. They have this set up in Salesforce for their quota, and they can get started just out the gate. This is just one very simple example of how Workflows helps automate these everyday simple tasks without writing code and puts more time back in IT's hands, and it's done with security built in at every step along the way. So, we've watched thousands of customers leverage Okta Workflows from different industries and segments and adopt this tool over the last several years that has really helped them be successful, and they love telling us about the benefits that it brings to their organizations. So whether that's Slack, that's saving hundreds of hours a year for their IT teams, Peloton, who's cutting their account management ticket time in half, and Wyndham Hotels, reducing cost of development labor by 85%. Again, giving more time back to that developer to focus on high value work. And it's really neat to see how these teams have been able to scale and become even more efficient and secure with workflows. And on that note, I'd like to take a moment to highlight a company with a very specific security use case. So here I want to tell you about how a global industrial company in the energy business who conducts business across 30 different countries and covers end-to-end energy supply chain from production to transport, storage, and delivery. They're leveraging workflows at scale to improve their security posture. So this company harnessed and expanded the power of workflows to drive unmatched visibility and security with workflows. They deliver IT services to over 120 users, both employees and contractors, and they really rely on IT teams around the world to deliver and support services. So you can imagine this brings a number of challenges and complexities to their organization. They have more than 65 Okta orgs, representing over 1,000 applications, 120 employees, over 30,000 partners, and 110 million customers. So there's really a lot on the line here to keep identity secure. So what did this global industrial energy business do? So with MFA phishing attacks on the rise, they really wanted to educate their employees on what MFA phishing attacks look like, how to respond, how real they can look, and how easy it is to accidentally click on malicious links. So they created 4 real MFA phishing attacks using the Workflows Connector Builder. They created 2 custom action cards, one for sending a push notification and another to verify the push factor. So you can even see in the example here how real the "did you just sign in" image looks. And their goal of reproducing what a real attack would look like and educating employees how to respond when an attack happens was really successful. It helped improve their security posture. They saw around 5% of people were clicking on the link and provided them data to continue to have more sophisticated test attacks in the future to educate their employee base. This is an example of just one way workflows can be leveraged to strengthen security posture at scale. And we can't wait to see what else this company continues to innovate on to educate and strengthen their security posture. Before we dive into a few more security use cases, I'd like to take a moment to talk about the range of use cases that Okta Workflows covers. So we won't cover all of these today, but just to give a quick snapshot. Initially, Workflows was used to help solve lifecycle management processes or joiner, mover, leaver processes, as well as some use cases around B2B and business partner apps. But ever since then, you can see it has really grown and Workflows has greatly expanded. We've seen customers leverage it in so many creative ways with use cases specific to governance and security, expanding into our customer identity products, and now looking at federal use cases and ITP, identity threat protection, like we were just talking about. So with that, let's move on to some common use cases when it comes to improving overall security posture and what that looks like using Workflows. So like we discussed, the rise in security breaches and data breaches has huge financial impacts, from on average costing companies over $4 million and, really big hits to productivity of IT and the business at large when these things happen. So there's really a strong need for automation to come into play here and manage the security inputs and responses to not only prevent, but detect and then respond when things happen. So with pre-built templates for some of these top use cases, a popular way that Workflows is used is to, in the security context, is to prevent account takeovers. So think about when a user seems suspicious. They've attempted 5 times in the same minute to reset their MFA factor, and they want to reset their password. This is, really risky behavior that can be addressed with Workflows, and you can take action on that quickly. Move those users into a table that's under watch. You're monitoring the user within that table in a certain time frame, and then from there able to take action. If those users continue other suspicious actions and activities, you can revoke their session. You can force them to sign in, and send a notification to your security team letting them know that this has happened. So that full end-to-end response and then alert internally to your team to help bolster the security posture. Other security use cases around support are around support and prevention, protecting against internal risk factors. So this could be you have a user or maybe a disgruntled employee, and you may need to lock them out or prevent them from using their company laptop. This could also be used for an offboarding scenario. So if a user has reported a device as being lost or stolen, Workflows gives you a quick way, an automated way to quickly lock access and prevent any further security concerns with those users. Another one is using Workflows as a response layer. So we see customers who really are looking for an orchestration solution across all of their existing applications, and they want some sort of way to integrate across apps and take automatic responses based on certain triggers. So this could be responding to risk signals like suspicious users, suspicious email behavior, and having that automatically alerted to their security team so that they can take action. So again, creating that response layer with Workflows as kind of like your preliminary security response there. To cover a few other basic ways that Workflows is used beyond just security, as we mentioned, lifecycle management or LCM is really where Workflows started. So we always like to highlight these simple ways that Workflows is used by several of our customers today. So if you're unfamiliar, lifecycle management makes it really easy to automate account credentials. So if you think about joiner, mover, leaver processes or using SCIM protocol, the system for cross-domain identity management or SCIM is really a provisioning protocol to create, retrieve, update, and deactivate users and groups between Okta and downstream applications and directories. So if we're simplifying LCM, it really provides two things. First, lifecycle management offers a prescriptive joiner, mover, leaver path. And secondly, lifecycle management makes it really easy to provision accounts to certain applications. And so the value for our customers is that it's really prescriptive. It's incredibly easy to use, right? However, where Workflows comes into play, customers want more flexibility to handle more of those provisioning needs that are more custom to their specific business requirements. So organizations want to go further than just those joiner, mover, leaver processes and perform deeper actions within provisioning across the lifecycle, triggering granular actions along the way. The main difference here between LCM and Workflows is that Workflows really is delivering more flexibility, more functionality, that ability to do those deeper granular actions across different identity scenarios. And so let's just take a moment to look at a snapshot of what this use case looks like in action, looking at granular actions during on and offboarding through provisioning across multiple apps. So here you can see in one of these examples, we're adding Workflows on top of joiner, mover, leaver actions and creating a Salesforce account, assigning a license, looking up a user team in Okta, and then assigning a territory in Salesforce, kind of like that first example we gave in the beginning. The final step is to create a Slack account where a user is automatically added to their appropriate and relevant Slack channel and sent a welcome message. So in the case of deprovisioning, the action starts with suspending the user, looking up the user's manager, transferring the folders and permissions in the system where their information lives, and making sure that the manager has access to that before the employee is gone, and then automatically deleting that user from whatever system they were part of. So this is really important when thinking about how you still need access to some of those important data and files and don't just want to immediately cut off a user without taking the appropriate steps in a secure fashion to transfer the necessary information. So we've covered several security-specific and LCM use cases today. Hopefully you've seen how Workflows can significantly help boost your company's security posture, reducing costs. You've also seen how Workflows helps automate basic LCM use cases like we just talked about. And to help kickstart your journey automating security operations, there are several pre-built security solution packs for these top use cases, like protecting company data. So that may look like notifying users when password changes are made. There's also a bucket of this solution pack for responding to risk signals. So reporting suspicious activity in Slack or PagerDuty, quarantining Okta users when necessary, managing the end user's devices, like we talked about, if you need to lock or suspend a user or prevent access to a device. And then the last one here is about extending security audit and reporting. So identifying inactive Okta users or inactive users in Okta, or managing access to GitHub repo based on certain assessment statuses. So by automating security tasks and enhancing the identity infrastructure, organizations can really reduce the risk of security breaches and improve that overall security posture. All right, so now let's talk about what's new and upcoming for workflows. First, I'd like to take a moment to highlight what's new. This is another way that workflows is being used to really bolster security with Okta Identity Threat Protection, or ITP, and Okta AI. ITP is Okta's threat assessment and response platform that helps enhance security posture and enable proactive identification and mitigation of potential login threats before they escalate. So here, Workflows comes into play by empowering customers to enhance and extend ITP, really providing the flexibility to tailor risk responses to your unique needs after ITP and Okta AI have detected a risk. So think about the multiple responses to behaviors, policies, detections in ITP. Workflows comes in to the rescue here and automates those responses, like needing to notify your SOC team or creating tickets in ServiceNow or Jira. It can help move users into quarantine groups or suspend them, and even configuring different flows for different risk scenarios based on your requirements. So here with Workflows, you can really automate those next steps after the risks are detected to keep security tight at every step. The team has also been really hard at work on some more granular access control. So here we have role-based access control, or RBAC. This is coming soon. This will enable more people to safely build on the Workflows platform. So enabling admins to lock down sensitive flows like those that are related to security or HR. And along with this, we'll also be introducing subfolders, which not only help with configuring access management, but also just generally with organizing the number of flows that you may have. So you'll be able to manage permissions in the Okta admin console using out-of-the-box and custom roles, and generally just getting a lot more control over who can build and manage which flows within the platform. And another one that's kind of upcoming is execution log streaming. This will be another new feature that enables customers to consume execution logs in a downstream SIEM tool. The benefits here really are to help audit execution history and monitor the performance across all workflows at once, and alerting when time-sensitive errors or issues arise. So again, that security piece in there. And last but not least, as for just some of the things that are coming down the pipe with Workflows, is Execution History Inspector. This is an exciting one, as this will provide more visibility into workflow execution performance. So helping customers really understand what's happening in their flows, troubleshoot errors, seeing and having a bit more visibility into where there's points of friction and where they can continue to iterate on that flow. All right, so we talked about a lot today. Let's just have a quick moment for a quick summary of what we saw, what we heard, what we learned. Hopefully everyone is walking away with a really solid understanding of how Workflows can help automate critical security tasks for your IT teams that are really more important today than ever before. Like we talked about, the rise of breaches, the financial impacts of that, with over, on average, $4 million that's costing organizations today. as well as how Workflows automates not just LCM and lifecycle management tasks, but security operations, like really important security steps like account takeovers and responding to suspicious activity in a quick fashion. We also hope you are inspired by how customers are innovating with workflows. They're using the connector builder, like we saw the global energy company, and building things like MFA phishing attacks to educate their employees on how to take action and what a phishing attack really looks like. And lastly, we talked about how you can quickly take action today. You can get started easily with workflows. You can leverage the security solution packs that help across a range of use cases and provide pre-built templates to really kickstart your building. So we hope that you found this valuable. And with that, hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much, Emily. It was great to have you on. It does look like we'll have to keep things moving along here. So any questions from you out there in the audience will be followed up by followed up upon by the Okta team after today's EcoCast. And I do thank you for sending those in. Keep them coming. We do have some time for Q&A in these next coming presentations, hopefully. And honestly, one interesting thing I've seen a theme with some of the questions today is how do we convince the C-suite, that the ones with the purse strings, that security is an ongoing thing? How do we approach the board and get the money? So this is something I'm going to mark down, and maybe we'll have to put this into some upcoming questions and conversations here at Actual Tech Media with these awesome teams. Now, as you can see, some of you have already started filling out the poll there, but if you haven't yet, please put in what additional information you would like about the Okta workflow solution. Are you looking for data sheets, pricing? You want to try it? Or you're already a customer? Please plunk in that feedback. It is incredibly valuable. And again, if you want to learn more right away, click into the handouts tab and go check out the white paper, Secure Your Company with Identity First Automation using Okta Workflow's no-code platform. Alrighty, so let's keep this show on the road. Next up on today's EcoCast, we have our friends at Rubrik back in the house. If you have been around and enjoyed some of our webcasts in the past, I'm sure you are, happy to see Rubrik back in, and always it's great to have a familiar face here on the platform. Today, please welcome Seema Kathuria. Seema is the Senior Product Marketing Manager at Rubrik. And of course, we look forward to hearing about how Rubrik approaches automation with some tools and tricks. So with that, Seema, I'm going to let you take things away. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. And I'm Seema Kathuria. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Rubrik. Today, I'll be sharing with you how you can simplify data security with automation. Here's the agenda. I'll talk about Rubrik, what the company does, what we're known for, and cyber resilience, the importance of cyber resilience as you think about your cybersecurity strategy. Rubrik's data context and how it can be used across your existing tools, as well as from the Rubrik platform itself to provide very important visibility into data and data security postures. And finally, we're going to dive deeper into simplifying data security with automation, be it directly from Rubrik, as well as other tools in your portfolio. So who is Rubrik and how can Rubrik help me? Maybe the best way to answer that question first is explaining what we don't do, what Rubrik doesn't do, which is prevention. We don't prevent anything. Yet you might ask, how can you be a security company if you're not preventing threats? Well, preventing threats is critical, and we recognize that there are a lot of good companies who are doing this, and you probably know a lot of these yourselves. We're partnering with leaders in a variety of different security tools that focus on prevention. But when it comes to cybersecurity, there's a critical gap that continues to exist, protecting and securing the data that lives inside of different places, be it on-premises data centers, be it the cloud, be it SaaS applications. Ensuring your data is defensible at all times and that your business is cyber resilient is a really important consideration. Why is it really critical? Why is it important to think about cyber resilience? In particular, organizations can continue to be hit by things like ransomware as well as other cyber attacks. And it's not a failure of prevention firms. In fact, if anything, we should assume breaches will happen, and they continue to happen and impact organizations across a variety of industries. You can see a number of them are the healthcare industry, it's often financial services, even government. The big attacks in the news are always focused on data. And so when they get hit, these organizations are really worried about their data getting stolen. So the approach that Rubrik's taken is we believe that the focus of cybersecurity needs to expand. And that is where Rubrik comes in. We provide this particular value of delivering complete cyber resilience. This is because we focus on the data security itself. Rather than working outside in, as prevention security often does, we start with a focus on the data within, and how we can take action on the data by having a lot of information and context around that data. What is cyber resilience? It's a combination of two really big important pillars. The first is data security posture management, and the second is cyber recovery, also known as enterprise data backup or protection. And Rubrik in particular has been around for 10 years, and we've been really well known for the enterprise data backup protection. We're one of the leaders there because we recognize that a number of firms continue to be hit by ransomware. So how could we help them stay resilient in the face of ransomware? More recently, you might have heard of data security posture management on the left side. And this is relatively a new area that is recognizing attacks will happen. And therefore, how can you have visibility into your data security posture to limit the data exposure and the risk of data exfiltration? So combined, data security posture management, or DSPM, and cyber recovery can help you really achieve more comprehensive cyber resilience. And Rubrik Security Cloud is our platform that enables this cyber resilience. If you look at the Gartner, which is one of the big analysts in security, Gartner Magic Quadrant has given us the designation as leader. So Rubrik's been a leader in the Magic Quadrant report for the past 4 years, in particular for our enterprise data backup and recovery capabilities. We provide immutable enterprise backup. It's the best in the industry. Immutable data backup essentially means that you have a copy of data that cannot be changed, deleted, or overwritten until a specific time has passed. Immutable data backups are protected, unchangeable, and encrypted. This will help ensure data is secure, be it a situation of a natural disaster, a human disaster, or initiated event, ransomware from any kind of malicious actors, as well as other cyber threats. You want to make sure your data is protected no matter what kind of event happens. And that's where immutable backups come in. You need to think of backup as a key part of your cybersecurity strategy and architecture. It's the ultimate insurance. And there are a number of things that Rubrik has innovated over the last 10 years that we've been in this market to make sure that you feel like we can be a trusted vendor to make sure we're securing your data in a very strong immutable backup. With that data backup, it's a great place to get data context. Now that we know about your data, in this form, we can put that data into getting insight out of that data to work for you. So in the remaining part of the session, we'll talk about how you're able to take a lot of these insights, knowing where your data is stored, where it's located. What kind of data do you have? Is it sensitive data? And if so, how can you classify that data? How can you make sure that only those who need access should have access at a specific time and place, and where they should be revoked access? So there's this dynamic of having access to data and whether that data access should change over time, and has it changed over time? All that visibility is available. We also have to understand how data can be changing in terms of location, maybe the way that it's being used in terms of compliance. So there are a number of variety of dynamic things that are happening that in some cases are in the organization's control, and in other cases they have to comply with. Let's think about next then how we can actually leverage this data context to simplify data security using automation. Automation that can be available either natively through Rubrik or through your other tools that you may be using today that enable that automation and taking action on threats. And that's where we also come in because we can integrate with a number of those solutions. Let's first dive into data context from a recovery point of view. We talked about the fact that ransomware can happen and how can you recover more quickly and in a safe place with it. We will talk about the fact that Rubrik Cyber Recovery here allows you to surgically and rapidly recover applications, files, or objects while actually avoiding malware reinfection. Importantly, attackers are not only encrypting your data, oftentimes they're actually really trying to reinfect even your backup data. And that's where we come in by understanding that attacks are evolving from a one-time thing to even being multifaceted. So we can help you restore your business operations by going back to a safe recovery point with your data. And as your data set is evolving, as you have more data come in to your backup, we can actually go ahead and understand the changes in the data backup and just add more of that data backup over time and saving you time and cost, really minimizing that need to go in manually and check for changes in that, how much backup data, at what point in time did you have to back up the new data? We can take care of that for you seamlessly. The other way to use our data context is to monitor for threats using Rubrik Threat Monitoring. It will automatically identify indicators of compromise, also known as IOCs, based on the latest threat intelligence. And this threat intelligence can be then fed into the Rubrik threat feed. There's two things. The hashes and the Yara rules are going to come from different contributors. In one of the cases, the contributor is Rubrik's own information security team, which is wonderful because you get to leverage the same threat intel that we're using to protect our own selves when we're looking at our own data. And the other intel can also come from our Rubrik Zero Labs, which is shown on the left. This is our own internal threat research team that is continuously monitoring for what is happening with different sensitive data across different sets of data for our own company as well as other companies that we're protecting. We can also get data from third parties. Maybe you have certain threat intel sources that you want to be able to consume. You can tell us about them, and we can also work with our own partners to leverage threat intelligence. We will also make sure no matter where that threat intelligence comes from open source, third party, our own teams, we're going to vet it to make sure that the quality of the intelligence is very high. We want to also make sure that threat intelligence is relevant, that the threats are relevant to the critical infrastructure environments we're helping to protect. Once that threat intelligence has been vetted, it's downloaded by threat monitoring at a set time interval. And as new threat intel comes in, a threat hunt can get kicked off automatically and go out and search for specific threats based on the hashes and Yara rules. And that's really important. You want to make sure that you are continuously looking for any match and notified either by email or checking your own Rubrik's data threat analytics dashboard for the latest threat intel. You can also drill down via our dashboard to see where that threat was located, what hash or Yara rule had been matched, and find attributes associated with the hash or Yara for more background information. This could assist you in potentially kicking off other threat hunts through our Rubrik threat hunting feature, or via third-party tools like SIMs or EDRs. You could even quarantine the threat from within threat monitoring. So that's another big benefit, is actually trying to isolate that particular threat until you can go ahead and contain it. Essentially, threat monitoring is a turnkey solution that will help you detect and protect the organization from threats. The intelligence is automatically downloaded. The threat hunts based off this threat intelligence are also automatic. And if threats are found, you're notified about them. And any attributes associated to the threat can be shared whenever possible, making it really a simple solution. Next, consider having data context for detection of anomalous behavior to determine the scope of a cyber attack. This is where Rubrik anomaly detection comes in. It's a comprehensive approach to ransomware remediation. So imagine a situation that you have a ransomware attack. How are you going to remediate quickly? Rubrik can help. Rubrik anomaly detection uses multi-stage machine learning to detect anomalies on your backup data. These stages include observing file creations, deletions, and modifications, and comparing those things to historical changes within the specific workload to understand what changed and what happened. So you can then start doing more detective investigative work. Also, entropy is analyzed to determine if any ransomware-like encryption had taken place. That's definitely a big indicator of some suspicious action and event that happened. And finally, if it is possible, we could even identify the specific ransomware strain, giving you even more insight when you go back and do your investigation to be able to see what kind of action can be taken, what point in time to investigate that particular ransomware type. If an attack has already occurred, Rubrik automates the assessment of the blast radius to understand quickly what applications and files were impacted and when they were impacted, importantly, in a point in time. This eliminates the intensive manual labor that's required, like bringing up a virtual machine copy, manually comparing and scrubbing for changes, which could take weeks, if not months also in some cases. Anomaly detection can help. It gets really granular, down to the folder and file level, so you know exactly what was impacted and could have to be recovered from your backups. And unlike other solutions in the market, Rubrik can even detect encryption of VMs, such as the popular VMware ESXi hypervisor. And this is really important because malicious actors are increasingly targeting virtualization infrastructure today. And these attacks could take down systems that are running on virtual infrastructure, including even security tools that run on virtual infrastructure. So it's really important to have this visibility and ability to detect these kinds of things where Your VMs in particular become vulnerable to attack and encryption. And because your data is not available in read or write mode, it cannot be overwritten. This refers to our file system immutability. One-click recoveries can be leveraged to revert back to the most clean, recent version, whether using instant recovery, live mount, or even file-level recovery operations. You can rest assured that you can recover back to a clean, safe point as quickly as possible. Another use case for data context is being able to use data context to automatically discover and classify your sensitive data. This is the part of when we lean into the data security posture management piece, we start thinking about how can I discover my sensitive data? How do I know what kind of sensitive data I have? We can automate that for you. We can locate and discover that data across on-premises data centers, cloud, and SaaS environments. This means that you don't have to really put any manual efforts into understanding where the sensitive data is, and then where you can go ahead and find that data and then take some action on it. We can provide visibility into known as well as unknown shadow data in the cloud, scanning your environment even without any intervention from the team, so making it really simple and easy. You can really focus that way on what's important to your business. We can even scan new data assets as they are brought on board into those environments. We can even find changes to existing data assets and then make sure that they've been labeled properly. One of the more recent innovations is we're integrating with the Microsoft Information Protection labeling so that we'll be able to do even more enrichment of that labeling mechanism. So really enriching some of your existing DLP and MIP solutions. In addition to data discovery and classification, you also have to think about what else you need to look at for when you're looking at the data security posture itself to reduce the risk of data theft upfront, or hopefully ahead of an attack. For one, we will help you eliminate unnecessary data. Think about redundant data, stale data you no longer need as a business. It's completely something that you can forego. You don't need it anymore. If you can do that, that's going to help you reduce your attack surface. So by locating that for you, you can actually take an action on that data and reduce your overall footprint. You could even lower your cloud spend on data backup because you're no longer going to save any of this extra data that's no longer needed in your cloud. Now you can focus your security efforts on just the data that you care about. The second benefit is we'll help you limit access to sensitive data by identifying your most risky users. In some cases, these could be your C-level leadership folks that might have access to some, that undisclosed information of the companies, maybe in forthcoming press release. It could be data that is of your own personal users. It could be PII data. You want to understand who are the most risky users and what kind of sensitive data they have in the organization based on how they're accessing that data. Are they touching data they shouldn't be? You can use this information to proactively implement least privilege access, which is a very critical way for you to reduce the data exposure. And third, we will continuously assess data posture, identifying and enabling you to remediate data security violations that put your sensitive data at risk of exposure and exfiltration, because it's not a one-time thing. Data is not going to stay still. Users won't stay still. You want to continuously be monitoring for any new and upcoming risks to the data. And finally, we'll monitor and alert you to anomalous and suspicious data access and activity as soon as possible. That way you can quickly contain security incidents and minimize the financial, business, and regulatory impact it could have on your organization. One of the more recent capabilities we've also added from an action standpoint is being able to take action on key insights that we've gleaned within our Rubrik Cloud on users, their activity on sensitive data, and permissions. Say you have an IT service team that you want to go ahead and take some action on this insight that Rubrik is providing on user access to data. We can actually go ahead and enable that through our new integration with ServiceNow ticketing system. The first step of this is being able to have Rubrik identify any new instance of data accessed by a specific identity or user. The second is the Rubrik admin will go in to the Rubrik Security Cloud UI and file a ticket. And they're kicking off that ticket process for ServiceNow. And then within the last stages are the third and final steps to manage and track those tickets across time for the status and follow up on the corrective action you want to take against that particular identity. Maybe you want to revoke access at this time for that particular data set from that identity. Well, with this IT service ticket management system, you'll be able to take that action. So we're really happy that this is something that our customers of ServiceNow can start taking advantage of. And when you look at the final piece, which I mentioned earlier, is we recognize our customers are using a lot of different security tools already, and we can help them make them even more powerful. With information Rubrik has to understand organizations' data, knowing what's happening on the production data and what we're backing up from that production system, we can give you that better context to existing security tools to make security teams more aware and efficient. For one, Rubrik will provide information about your sensitive data to your data loss prevention tools, for example, to prevent data exfiltration. Say that certain data set, think of the analogy of having all your diamonds in a certain safe and locker, but you have less valuable jewelry in another locker. Well, we can distinguish between the most sensitive data and less sensitive data and nuance that and give you that kind of granularity of data context so you can take the appropriate action with your DLP tools. Another level of context is we'll provide user intelligence for your identity and access management, or IAM tools, also to that infrastructure. This is to help detect compromised accounts. Maybe there's an account that is all of a sudden having a behavior where they shouldn't be touching certain kind of sensitive data. And we realize that there's this kind of behavior that's happening that does not indicate that this user is behaving in the way they should. We are suspecting it's a compromised account. We can send that kind of context over to the IAM tool to then take an action, maybe resetting that person's password or other credentials in order for them to get back in business and not go through that whole compromised situation anymore. We can provide a number of SOAR and SIM tools with a context in terms of logs, messages, automated playbooks, which will help the security operations teams reduce manual tasks. It's really going to enable them because they have this rich data context that they can leverage within those existing threat logs. Rubrik can provide data to your other solutions, your network security, cloud security, as well as other zero trust or ZTNA solutions to better protect your data. We are uniquely in a position with the backups that we have to provide this rich context to those solutions. And finally, if you today have endpoint detection response, XDR solutions and tools, we will help you by providing that context to help triage and reduce the mean time to response by, again, working alongside with that tool and providing that data context to them. And if you want to know what vendors we work with, we're more than welcome to look at our website. We started working with a number of vendors, including CrowdStrike, having integration with them. It's really important to put this context directly into your existing security tools. Why? Because then you're combining the target, which is the data context, with the threat context that you have into a single place, a place that your security practitioners are using every day. And this helps with detecting, prioritizing, and responding ultimately to those threats to better secure your data as much as possible to help with that cyber resilience. And of course, last but not least, I wanted to talk to you about how we can really enrich and make life easier for the backup admin, for the security admin, by offering this generative AI companion that we call Ruby from Rubrik. After we make data context easy to consume, understanding and acting on it through this Ruby powerful tool will enable customers to quickly perform the most complex tasks. It's a very new capability that we've really invested in because we recognize that organizations are looking for strong cyber resilience and they want more and more help where they don't have enough people that they can necessarily find nor afford. So it's important to be able to use this assistive technology to really enable this. A large part of the strong cyber resilience is about rapid recovery from cyber attacks. So that is the first use case. So Rubrik will help you do that by working within the same security cloud from Rubrik UI. And the skills will be helping you through a specific workflow while providing all the necessary context right at your fingertips. It will help you guide and help the customers through the recovery process after a cyber attack happens. And it's built on Microsoft Azure's OpenAI technology and been trained on our own Rubrik's internal knowledge and expertise. So you don't need to train it as a customer. It's not going to use any customer data, so there's not that privacy concern. But what I'm sharing with you today is the first use case of Ruby, and there'll be more to come as we equip Ruby with more skills over time, in addition to this post-attack recovery, as a practical, ever-evolving solution to help you strengthen your cyber resilience. So I encourage you to learn more about Ruby, again, on our website, www.rubrik.com. So as I move towards our summary for today, we're a company that is all about protecting data at its very core. And in the Rubrik Security Cloud, it's enabling you to achieve very high cyber resilience through a combination of strong data security posture management and our market-leading cyber recovery solution, so that you have a single place to go, the Rubrik Security Cloud, to be able to manage that data over time, understand how the data security posture is changing over time, which users are accessing that sensitive data, and then being able to use all of that great data context in your existing tools as well as within Rubrik. And if you're thinking, well, why is cyber resilience as important as, or if not, more is in terms of preventing threats? I'm already preventing threats with a lot of the tools I have. Is that not enough? Well, the reality is successful attacks can happen. And in that case, you want to minimize the damage, absorb the hit, and recover quickly. These are three big outcomes. Now with Rubrik, you will know what you're protecting. You'll know what data you have. You can reduce your data exposure and your data theft risk with DSPM. You can monitor the data directly for threats through a number of the capabilities like threat monitoring that we talked about, being able to threat hunt on specific indicators of compromise and be in a much more proactive state. And we've also shared that data context with other security tools. So that just helps you enrich data context with threat context to take even greater action in your existing tools. Overall, all in all, now you'll be able to achieve cyber resilience. You'll be prepared in case an attack does happen. So if I leave you with cyber resilience is being able to successfully endure cyber attacks rather than solely trying to prevent them. So think about racing atop a mountain bike. You could get hurt. And in that case, the key is what kind of protective gear you have, what you have on. And if and when you crash, can you just dust off and continue the race? Well, that's the goal. Cyber resilience is to be prepared for the attack so it doesn't take you out of the race. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seema. I love both that analogy of not getting taken out of the race, because of course many of the organizations and representatives tuning in here are definitely looking to grow and soar and scale. So the last thing we want is to be hindered or taken out of the race. I also have to say the name Ruby for an AI assistant is really cute and I like it. We've got so many new AI assistants and names popping up these days. So I was like, Ruby, I like that. It's really nice to hear some of the new things coming out at Rubrik as well. And thank you so much for being here today. I do want to point out that there is a poll question up for you all. Just like before, we'd love to get your feedback on any additional resources that you are looking to explore from Rubrik. Again, your feedback is super valuable, and this is just an easy way to get exactly what you're looking for in the time frame that you are looking for. So go ahead and answer that poll. And if you do want to get started right away, you can also click into the Handouts tab and find a link to the Rubrik Zero Labs ebook, The State of Data Security, Measuring Your Data's Risk. This is both informative, but also a bit of a self-assessment. It's almost 40 pages. Don't let that scare you, though. It's very infographical and very visual. So it's an easy PDF to go through, and definitely something you might want to keep on hand for after today's EcoCast. And now, with all that excitement aside, I do have one more exciting prize to give away. This here is, again, a $300 Amazon gift card. So you do need to be live and present here at the webcast in order to win. And with that, our next winner of a $300 gift card today is Edgar Sanchez from Texas. Huge congrats to you, Edgar. And as always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after today's webinar. And don't forget, there is still another chance to win, plus those best question gift cards from each session. And speaking of questions, thank you so much for being active in the chat, asking great questions. Next up, I will be posing a handful of great questions to Catherine Chipty, who's going to be our next presenter here from Automox. So do keep those questions rolling in, everybody out there. And with that, let me give a formal introduction. We have Catherine Chipty here. She's the Solutions Engineering Director at Automox, and we are super excited to have her back here on the EcoCast. Catherine, are you ready here to take it away?
All set. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me back.
My pleasure. Take it away, and then I'll join you for some Q&A.
Perfect. Yeah. So short but hopefully helpful session today, really focusing around the IT admin's guide to safe automation, right? The big topic today, safe automation. And by way of introduction, without boring you all with the paragraph, my name is Catherine, and really over the past 3 years plus, I've been pretty fortunate at Automox. I've gotten to talk to well over 1,000 customers now at this point, hundreds of partners, tech alliances. And I think really what we are seeing is that automation is becoming less of a nice to have, but much more of a need to have. And so it's been awesome getting to present a tool that directly correlates to that need and actually presents a solution, right? A fix, helping teams rather than, giving them more problems. And so today I did want to start with reasons for automation, right? Don't want to spend too much time on the problem, but I do think it's helpful context for everyone on the call, and also can be very helpful context to bring into leadership conversations as well as arming you with some, automation advantages and kind of concrete qualification behind why we are seeing this implemented in so many environments. And then finally, and most importantly, majority of the call will be spent on that actual path to achievable and safe automation, right? A way that we can implement this that's helpful, right? It's easy and it's not concerning to anybody. So as far as the problem goes, I kind of think of this in three terms, right? The tool problem, the volume problem, and the time problem. So when you think about IT and a lot of what they're dealing with, security tools have been very cloud native, right? Very autonomous, zero trust, all the fun words for years and years now. But the IT team that typically has to actually fix the devices, keep the environment healthy, build the environment, right? All of that from a tooling problem has been super legacy with a lot of complexities and inconsistencies, on-prem servers or cloud gateways or VPNs to maintain, right? Also that VPN dependency as well as some of the on-prem components. And most important to today's conversation, right? Very manual. Everything has been very manual for these teams. And why that starts to become more and more critical important is that volume problem. So when you look at risk specifically, right, probably the biggest concern for everybody today, those CVEs that have been publicly released and exploited have more than quadrupled or about quadrupled over the past 10 years. And I mean, we could maybe use this as a poll next time, but I would be very surprised if anybody's team or workforce has actually quadrupled, right? Typically, the companies have grown, the risk has grown, the infrastructure has grown, and those teams have really not been given the opportunity to scale at the same rate. So they're just dealing with a lot more and more. And both the tool and volume problem, right, lead to kind of showing why that's so critical. The number one vector today, kind of tied with two-factor authentication for these exploits, are the vulnerabilities being exploited. So a simple patch missing or a simple misconfiguration are still some of the top ways that attackers are getting into environments, and why it becomes more and more critical for our IT teams to implement some sort of automation to help them out. And this is kind of that final stat that hit me hard, but I think it does make sense when you look at over 100 days average time for these teams to remediate those vulnerabilities across their entire environment, right? And when you think of the number they are, the tools that aren't really getting them good visibility or control, it actually does make sense why we see such a large discrepancy in that 100 days versus just about a week for adversaries to actually weaponize and exploit those critical vulnerabilities. And I think that's actually shrunk in the past few months. So when you look at why we talk about automation so much here at Automox, our customers, over 90% of them, have been able to harden that critical infrastructure within 24 hours of an identified vulnerability. So again, you talk about these IT teams really being responsible for fixing the environment, for fixing vulnerabilities, keeping it healthy. With all those stats, that's why we see the huge discrepancy of with automation and without, and why we talk about this as passionately as we do. So again, enough of the problem. I know you're all living it. You're all aware of it. Some of the happier stats, right, we see from automation making that endpoint management, that endpoint hardening easier are up here, right? Half reported improved security posture, right? And I think that's on the very conservative side as far as the amount of risk we see reduced because we're able to automate hardening like patches and configurations quicker and quicker. Right? Almost half indicated less stress in the day-to-day operations. And I think this is kind of an underrated one when it comes to the IT teams and automation. And when we talk about all these teams have to deal with, right, it's a field that sees a ton of churn because these teams just are exhausted. They're working nights, they're working weekends to patch and update and fix and remediate. And so knowing that automation can reduce some of that mundane, and that causes a lot of stress in day-to-day operations, I think is massive to the success in retention in a successful and smooth running department as well. And then about the same said that they had increased ability to actually meet those SLAs and goals. And, we're happier when we're meeting goals. We look better as a team when we're meeting goals. And 67% noted that automation is the most important for IT agility, right? So think about all the things thrown at these teams, being able to scale, to keep up with it. Automation is playing a massive part in doing that. And so, obviously it kind of sounds like a no-brainer. We look at the problem, we look at, the ways that automation is making that endpoint management easier. But I think the reality is, why doesn't everybody have automation of some sort, or even, full automation for a lot of these mundane tasks? There are still some very real roadblocks that people have concerns with. And most important being, security concerns. What is something doing if it's automating an action in the environment, and what are the effects of that, or the potential negative effects of that, right? So kind of talk through ways to safeguard yourself against safely implementing that automation against any type of security concerns. We look at third-party patches and ransomware risks, right? So automating the updates sounds good from a risk reduction standpoint, but we do need to make sure we're doing it with a tool that takes into consideration, scans third-party patches, scans patches before actually deploying them to our environment. Same thing with the access creep and unsigned PowerShell risks. Are we using tools that authenticate, that have some sort of multi-authentication, some sort of encryption protecting what's in your environment? And then just general lack of visibility or awareness is probably what I see being one of the biggest concerns around automation. There's an assumption almost that, well, if I'm automating something, I don't know what's going on. I don't have control. So how do we get rid of that, right? Getting good visibility, any pre and post automation, as well as, the ability to undo if we need to from an action standpoint. And so all of that goes into kind of at Automox how we think about automation in 3 steps and implementing this as safely and soundly as possible. And I love just the people, process, product of it all, right? How they tie into each other, how all 3 of them are super important to the other, and how they also help us start to categorize the best approach to automation, but really anything, right? I think people, process, product is a great way at looking at implementing any type of new sort of approach in our IT and security companies and teams and domains. So starting with that pillar of people, right? I think this is an important one just because, the people are the ones who can be a really big starter or a really big roadblock. And so I think first and foremost, getting team buy-in, right? Who are your automations going to impact? Who is this process going to impact? So obviously key team members, whether those are people where the automation is going to save them that time we've talked about, right? Automation is going to give them hours back in the day. It's going to let them focus on the more interesting things, getting their buy-in and feedback, as well as the folks that are your actual end users, right? That automation can affect in a positive or negative way, showing them how automation can help their devices stay healthier, run quicker, make their day-to-day disruption less is really important for business operations. And then, of course, securing that executive sponsorship. I think this is one of the biggest ones where as a company, if we've done something for a very long time, executive sponsorship or executive teams might not be super open to change. And so I think getting management on board or finding an executive sponsor is always the most important. And the best way to do this with automation specifically for me is automation is one of those things that has actual, rare, concrete metrics of improvement, meaning there are concrete time savings for your business, concrete cost savings that means for your business, and concrete risk reduction where endpoint hardening is concerned. So it's kind of a rare opportunity for team members to also go ahead and be a hero a bit, right? Whether you're an admin or a manager or a leader, bringing this to the business is a way of saying, hey, I'm not thinking just about security, but the bottom line security has for our entire organization, the way I can save us money, the way I can save us time, and the way I can reduce that risk and our company's risk appetite has been a really impressive conversation for these organizations to have, right? Not just from a career perspective, but again, it's a fun one to have because there are concrete, actual calculators there. And we've linked one here, which I think is very interesting to show the actual people to cost savings correlation and the time they're spending without, the actual automation in place. I think this last piece here as well, bragged for user support. This is an interesting one because I've seen a lot of team members in IT who are doing incredible work. And it might just not be in our bones to brag for the effect that work is having. So especially where automation is concerned, this is a really good opportunity, right? And one for me personally, that I've been able to take the results of implementing this for companies and sort of brag about it a little bit, right? Again, and how I'm thinking and how I'm actually worried about the business's bottom line and the results that automation is driving. Right, so this people category is super, super important. And then process, right? Kind of after getting buy-in from people, it is important to have process-oriented steps. And this is going to keep iterating. You're going to have some initial process-oriented steps before getting buy-in, but really defining this as the transition between people and process, right? People and product. And so I think when you look at how we start to look at this process, how we start to define this, it sounds silly, but writing it out, right? Writing it out as far as what are the biggest issues, right? What are the biggest cost pits, the biggest time pits, the biggest risk pits that your team has, and maybe even boiling that down to the top 5 most exasperated, repetitive, miserable tasks. Kind of start to organize your low-hanging fruit, right, in a Boolean effort as well of what we have in the environment today and how do we start to automate that first and foremost. I think confirming those manual steps is also a challenge for a lot of companies. So, inconsistent processes tend to be a challenge for everybody. But, running into those tasks and making sure that you're identifying where things could be broken and then validating that process is actually working before automating it is super important, right? Or the process is not actually working. And then I think about, what are all the workflows impacted by these actual selected tasks? So, assess if that task itself is charged to liar workflows or larger workflows itself. And, what are some actual goals when we look at processes today that your team wants to meet? And what I like about this one is you can kind of look at your organization as a whole. Where are you today, right? Maybe we're trying to get critical vulnerabilities patched or remediated in 30 days, right? We know historically it's been really inconsistent because we don't have the right tooling or the right processes or the right people in place, right? Again, there's that tool volume time problem against us as a team. So documenting that before, and then also starting to understand and test out what automation goals will allow you to reach, right? Now, maybe we've implemented automation and we're able to get to everything patched in 30 days, maybe third parties patched in 7 days, anything critical done in 24 hours, right? That delta in SLA is super, super impactful for your organization as a whole and makes it sort of irrefutable that you're thinking about the process correctly and you're thinking about how to implement this correctly as well. Okay. So all rolling back into applying that back to the real life scenarios, right? I feel like based off those earlier slides I showed, we all have the ammo we need, right? It is numbers stacked against us. So just jotting down, right, and assessing those scenarios, the low-hanging fruit to the real pain, it shouldn't be difficult to identify the places where automation can really impact. And then, I think this third pillar is very important to how do we define that and how do we prove that, right? So product to me is really that bridge between people and process. And I think a big part of that as far as automation for IT teams is concerned and where Automox comes into place is there's typically a team for security and finding issues, and there is a team in IT for fixing issues, right? And so product can play a really big bridge, not only into those people and start to automate, the actual engagement between different teams, but also automate the process, right? So product is a really big one, and everything we've talked about, tying it together and proving out the processes work, right? So I think a big one here is just understanding your tech stack, where to invest and where to pull back, right? I think there can be some very shiny automation, AI, right, tools and buzzwords we're hearing about. But when we look at, again, the low-hanging fruit, the fundamentals that we might not be doing properly today with the products we have in tool, this is where a tool that helps you implement automation for those fundamentals will show vastly greater results than some of those more niche tools in the tech stack. Right? All that goes again into trying to get rid of some of the legacy solutions that are holding us back with manual workflows and implementing more forward-thinking tools that save us time, money, and help us reduce that risk. And ideally, those products, right, make sure that they are supplying you with plug-and-play automations out of the box, right? Make sure that those products are helping you tie integrations-wise automatically into the other solutions that you're using so that we can do more with less, right? I think is really the mantra for automation. And as I mentioned at the beginning when introing this pillar with product, really demonstrating results, right, with the right reporting. So product is really what's going to allow you to brag, as we've talked about. It should be supplying you with those results. Product should be able to concretely define for me the risk that I have reduced, right, the time that I have saved, the cost that I have saved versus my processes before. And that's really where, from an Automox perspective, like I said, it's been a fun conversation transparently for us to have because it's the fix, it's the solution, not the problem. And so when you look at a new approach to automating a very legacy space in endpoint management and endpoint hardening, we're the first tool to do this cloud native, right? It's not cloud migration, it's not cloud adjacent. It was the first tool built and continuously developed for the cloud. So you are zero to deployed to automating in truly minutes, right? And if you think about the current tools that harden your endpoints today, those come with 6 months of onboarding. They come with, hours and hours of training. People can implement them for months and still not feel like they're getting value. Then you look at this bottom pillar of functionality, really where we're wrapping automation around. The core pillars that Automox has identified is patching, right? So you look at specific risk to missing patches, whether it's from the operating system or for the third parties. We've ensured that we cover the most operating systems out the gate, as well as the most third-party applications out the gate to patch, so that one of the most manual, I would say processes for every organization today, just trying to patch, out of the box, you can start telling us how you want this automated with safeguards in place, and we take it from there. Right. And we've, really proof is in the pudding, kind of as we'll share at the end. I think the best way to experience this is really see it for yourself, and how one of our engineers can show you a policy in 5 minutes that'll patch, a 30-day SLA, 7 days, 24 hours for different patch types in your environment. Now, if you take a step back, I think one of the most important things here to remember is, not just the patching, but all of the configurations. So think about everything that's not patchable in your environment, whether it's a 0-day that just came out, right? Possibly one of the most manual things for people to deal with today. Everything stops. Doesn't matter if you're on vacation, doesn't matter if, you're doing a million other things. All attention and all hands on deck go to the 0-day. With Automox's worklets, or really configuration management, we've given teams the ability to out of the box remediate 0 days because our team is creating those configuration fixes. Whether it's still Log4j from, 2 years ago, or it's, something newer from Windows, AnyDesk, so on and so forth, they're creating that fix. So out of the box, you can make that configuration change. Maybe it's certain standards or protocols like CIS, or, I want to get rid of admin permissions, or I want to uninstall something. Broadening your scope and knowing now as an admin that you can actually set a baseline of compliance for your environment. Patch at this cadence, keep this configuration change in my environment, keep this software in my environment as a whole, creates a ton of downstream time savings where we were very reactive in the past. So again, as I mentioned before, for me personally, and I think for many of you, the best is to see it, right? To take your current pain, tell the team the SLAs you're dealing with, the time you're spending to remediate 0 days, to configure, to patch, to deploy software, and how across your entire environment, this tool can help you implement safe automation to set that baseline proactively, right? And save you a ton of that time, money, and effort. So, like I said, short and sweet, but hopefully really covers the topic of automation and why we're so passionate about it here and the implications it can have, as well as really how to safely implement that. So I appreciate everyone's time, and hopefully we have a time for a question or two.
Yes, we absolutely do. Thank you for the great presentation. And this is a killer slide, but I'm just going to throw up a poll to make sure anyone who's looking for a little bit more information about Automox and the solution there that you guys are providing.
We'll get that robot out of your face for sure. Thank you.
I love the robot. I'm like, can we get a poll slide with the robot on it? That'd be awesome.
We do have robot action figures that they have. Marketing's done a really good job. If anybody's interested in that, can't say no.
Right. I'm gonna have to get sent out to one of these tech events that I can get a robot at. So, well, that said, let's dive into some questions because we do have quite a lot. So if you're ready, first one here is for securing your automations. If I'm very early in this process with my organization, what would you recommend as the top few priorities or activities I should tackle first? Access controls, breach password protection, certificates. Where should I start?
Okay. All right. I mean, as far as starting, if you're early in the process, again, I really think that people, process, product is a really good way to start to identify this, right? Identify is probably step one before, and what are you going to categorize in people, process, product? So understanding all the stake owners, right? Your teammates, your managers, who really is responsible for this decision and how to work with them. From a process standpoint, I think organizing and understanding all of your, like I said, low-hanging fruit. I guarantee you people are spending way longer on patching and configuring than organizations want them to with everything else that you're responsible for. So start to document that and get some data around it if you don't have it, right? Where your SLAs are and where there's a massive room for improvement for you and your team. And then I do love the idea of certifications as, kind of a third pillar there of getting started, whether that is, sort of CIS or NERC or a system that you want to follow, depending on what industry you're in. There's a ton of good ones out there, and we have a whole data sheet on that too we can send out.
Amazing. That sounds great. Okay, I've got another question here from Warren. He's asking if Automox is intended for a large entity. He says his department consists of only 100 users.
Yeah, definitely not, right? We have a ton of organizations that maybe would be considered on the smaller side, but I think proportionally those organizations are dealing with the exact same problem. If anything, entities or departments consisting of, smaller users have to deal with just as much with even less resources. And on the other side of it, right, if you're a massive organization with hundreds of admins, you still probably have too many devices and time under your purview. So long way of saying we've got a massive spread of end users, right, for mom and pop shops that have a mere few devices to, Fortune 100 companies that have hundreds of thousands of devices in the environment.
Amazing. So flexible, scalable.
Absolutely.
All right. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. So next one I've got for you here is what are some specific Automox features that automate mundane manual tasks, and how easy are these to implement?
Yeah, I think for the specifics, right, that last slide was probably the best one to review that as far as patching. I think everybody would agree is a very mundane task. Operating system third-party patches is the best one top of my mind that comes up. But also, again, I think we often forget that there's so many configuration changes that we have to do today in the environment beyond patching. So like I said, it's registry key edits, it's system settings, it's maintenance tasks or security or uninstalling it, right? Like the list goes on and on for everything you have to do to a device that isn't just a patch. And so that's really what I think is the most powerful thing of the Automox platform is I don't even think people realize they can automate the configuration changes, right? Without having to use something like maybe like group policy, which, group policy is group policy. So how do we start to consolidate this? And how do we start to do it in a better way that's effective and that is autonomous?
Amazing. Okay, last question here we'll have time for is when your like new clients or new teams are coming on with Automox, what are the most common challenges you see the IT ops teams facing when implementing or considering automation, and how do you guys address this?
Yeah, I mean, look, again, I think the biggest thing with automation is a mindset shift for teams that have been doing things a certain way for a very long time, right? Whether it's using legacy tools, or they've had SCCM and Windows products in the environment for a decade, if not longer. It's definitely fair to say that change is something we maybe don't want to consider. And so, again, I think the best way to do it, or at least how we approach it at Automox, is really just proof is in the pudding. Right? What results can you get from automation and making that mindset shift? And how do you do it in a way that's still not going to disrupt your environment, right? Change doesn't have to always be super, super disruptive. And so when I say proof is in the pudding, right, how do we test this solution out or implement it or show it in a way that is giving our team back time from not having to spend X amount of hours in a tool, right? It is reducing that risk because it's remediating more effectively, or it's automating things more effectively. And all of that results in like pretty concrete cost savings for companies as well. So, like I said, I think that mindset shift is the hardest thing. Ideally, right, a tool is helping you and the team along with that. So for us, it's really just been proving it out.
That's amazing. Yeah, and it's funny because I think we all love the idea of automation, but sometimes it's funny how reluctant we are because we're like, well, I'm so used to this task, or this is kind of what I'm used to filling my time with. And then you're like, well, now how does that shift take place? So especially in more legacy organizations.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, that's all the time we have today, but any final words, any final call to action you want to leave the audience with today?
No, like I said, I appreciate everyone's time. And again, I think the best thing is just to test it out yourself. There's not always tools out there that do have such strong results just after seeing it or using it for an hour. So take advantage of that. Like I said, it's probably my favorite thing of working on this team. So hopefully some of you get to experience that.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. Well, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much, Catherine. And I look forward to the next time we have you on an EcoCast or MegaCast.
Thanks, Al. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Take care. Alrighty. If you do want to learn more right away, again, I've referenced it before, but this is our 4th of 5 fantabulous presenters today. Do click into the handouts tab and you can check out the data sheet, the Automox worklet, create, automate, and enforce automation scripts in minutes. So go check that out if you are curious about what Automox is up to. And again, you can reach out and try for yourself as mentioned there. And with that, we have our 5th and final presenting team today. I hate to say it, but the good news is that we've got a grand finale here with the Cohesity team. We've got not one, but 2 team members here coming in hot. So first and foremost, I am welcoming Stephen Jarmati. He's the Senior Principal Field Tech Director at Cohesity. And then to join for some Q&A at the end, we have Jonathan Meyer, Director of Security Solutions Architecture. So with that, Stephen, are you ready to rock and roll?
Thanks very much, Mackenzie, and I appreciate the intro. All right, so today we're going to be introducing a Cohesity solution for ransomware response with our partner Cisco and our XDR integration. So we're going to be focusing on data security and data management and how we can integrate with partners like Cisco to improve the response phase in a ransomware attack. But before we get into the details, I just wanted to introduce Cohesity for those of you that are not yet familiar. So Cohesity has been in existence for the last 11 years, and we serve a broad enterprise customer base, about 4,000 customers. We are fortunate to have 42% of the Fortune 100 in our customer base, as well as 7 of the top 20 US banks. We've had a lot of success, especially in the financial sector and in the federal and state and local sector as well. And the reason for that is so many of these organizations are facing challenges around data security and data management that are common in these industries, and it's why Cohesity excels there. And in spite of this rapid growth we've seen over the last 11 years, we've maintained a very high net promoter score, and that's really a testament to both our engineering and our support teams. So the Cohesity solution starts with data protection. We're focused on data protection of mixed workloads, including on-premise and public cloud workloads. things like virtual machines, NAS devices, databases, any type of data where you require data security. And we're able to recover these workloads very quickly at scale, which really differentiates our solution. So the foundation of what we do is backup, but we also do a lot more than that. We focus on data security by providing a secure, immutable copy, which can be used as a last resort in the event of a cyber attack. We also make sure the data is free of ransomware prior to restoration. We're able to identify sensitive data within the data set as well. And these are all security functionalities that build on top of what we do for data protection. Now, because Cohesity has created our own file system, our own snapshot engine, there are other use cases we can unlock as well. Things like disaster recovery or migrating workloads. We're also able to present copies of stored data very quickly in the event that you want to reuse those for test and dev purposes. And then finally, perhaps our newest area of investment is what we're doing for data insights. Organizations are storing a lot of data because of compliance reasons for backup, but oftentimes they don't know what's present in that data. And if there was a way of deriving business insights from that through AI or machine learning, that would increase the value of the stored data. And that's something Cohesity is investing in heavily as well. So you can see this is a comprehensive data management and data security platform. Today, we're focusing more on the data security elements, but we have a lot of different use cases for our product. Now, Cohesity can be managed centrally through a single UI, even though it's deployed in multiple locations. This can include a customer's on-premise data center. It could include a self-managed environment in the cloud, or if a customer prefers, they would like to consume the data protection as a service, getting the outcome, but not having to worry about managing the infrastructure. Regardless of where the product is deployed or the way it's consumed, it's still going to be managed centrally through one UI that we call Helios. So now let's take it into the data security aspect. One of the challenges we hear from many organizations we work with is that the threat of ransomware against their industries in general and their businesses specifically continues to accelerate within the last year. So 93% of customers we speak to feel that the threat is increasing. And 80% of those customers have concerns about their specific organization's ability to respond to a cyber attack. Because if you can't restore quickly, if you can't return the business to operation, that is real loss in terms of business that could occur in the event of a cyber incident. And when you ask these same decision makers, what did they attribute this challenge to? There's two common areas here. One is long recovery times because of a lack of integration between security and IT, and the other is antiquated backup and recovery systems. So across those two areas, Cohesity can help. So elaborating on some of these challenges that the organizations face, it might be a failure to protect critical machines. They haven't identified everything that needs to be backed up in their environment. Or maybe they're not able to meet as aggressive a recovery point as they would like, which could lead to more data loss in the event of an attack. There's also that integration point I touched on. Often, information security and IT have operated in a silo, and they don't share a common set of tools. And this can make it harder to respond quickly and to integrate data from both those two sets of tools. Also, when you look at how ransomware has evolved over the last several years, these attacks happen faster than ever. The encryption is highly performant. You can encrypt 100,000 files in 45 minutes, which means that as the encryption attack moves across the environment, it can happen faster than ever for a widespread impact. We spoke about how tools are siloed between security and IT, but within the Security Operations Center, there could be dozens of different security tools with disparate data in them that are all not very well integrated. And it can be difficult to understand the threat that the organization's facing at that moment in time. Also, even if you're receiving all the data, do you have context about which systems are impacted? Was it sensitive data that was impacted? And so forth. So then you get into the issue of recovery, because if you can recover quickly, you can mitigate business impact and you can prevent financial loss. But as we're speaking with these decision makers, we're finding 95% of companies believe it would take over 24 hours, 71% over 4 days, and 41% over a week. Now, imagine what it would look like for your business to experience a week worth of outage and the associated financial losses. So this is a very real problem that continues to plague our industry. So now I want to introduce Cohesity's capabilities in this space, and we align ourselves with the NIST cybersecurity framework. And those of you that are familiar with the framework knows that it has 5 major elements. And the first of those is identify. Identify means we need to identify data that requires protection in our environment and whether any of those data sets are sensitive. For instance, is there customer data, employee data, personally identifiable information that we need to secure with backups? We then need to take a immutable copy of that data, preferably on offline air-gapped storage. And what does immutability refer to? Well, this means that the backup, once written, cannot be modified or deleted for the duration of its retention period. So we store that immutable copy on Cohesity, we isolate it, we encrypt it, and then we apply zero trust to our own platform and product. What does that mean? It means that there's no implicit trust between components of the product, and there's no implicit trust for users that are authenticating against our product. And in this way, we can keep the data stored on Cohesity safe, so it can be your gold copy of last resort in the event of a ransomware attack. Now let's talk about what value we provide during the attack. Cohesity has the ability to detect ransomware anomalies in backup data. And what that means is if we see a deviation from the typical behavior of your systems in terms of data written size or data entropy or many other factors that we look at, we can throw a ransomware anomaly alert, notify your team, and let you know there's something you need to investigate more deeply. From there, we also have the ability to scan for specific indicators of compromise within the stored data. And the value that this brings is you can ensure that before you recover, there is no IOC within the backup snapshot that could potentially reinfect your environment. So it's important to know that when you give this to your security team and say, I want to use this as a starting point for my remediation. Now, in terms of response, what are some of the best practices for responding to a ransomware attack? Well, you'll likely need to stand up a clean room, which is a good place to investigate the compromised machines safely away from the rest of the production environment. Cohesity can bring copies of data into the clean room instantly. We can clone virtual machines, NAS file systems, and even databases. And if we can do so fast without data copy, it improves the response time. Some other response capabilities include that IOC scan that I spoke about, also vulnerability scanning. If you want to make sure that a given machine is free of vulnerabilities that could then be compromised, that's another benefit we bring. And then finally, recover. And this really is the main differentiator for Cohesity. We can cover larger data sets at a greater scale than much of our competition. And we use a technology called Instant Mass Restore to do that. In many cases, we can bring the workload online directly from the Cohesity cluster before we physically transfer the data back to your environment. And this saves a great deal of time in the event of an attack. We can also recover from both on-premise copies, cloud-based copies, and even our Vault as a Service product if you need to use that as an additional copy of last resort. So beyond the Cohesity native functionality, there is also a lot of integration with our partners in our security alliance that you see here. We believe that we are stronger together. They bring capabilities and build upon what Cohesity provides for a more comprehensive integration. So what are some of the benefits there? Well, you can use the tools that you already have, you can use them with Cohesity, and you can bring more value to both those tools as well as Cohesity. You can improve the operations of your SOC because now you have data feeding in from IT, from Cohesity, from your backup system, and you're melding that data with the data present in your existing security tools for a more complete view of the threat landscape. We can also provide these additional partnerships that you see here, whether it's vulnerability scanning with Tenable or data exfiltration prevention with Zscaler, or perhaps vulnerability scanning with something like Qualys. We can integrate with these vendors to provide a more comprehensive solution. So now I want to dig in on one specific topic, and that is our integration with Cisco XDR. The XDR integration provides these two major things. The first is a reduction of data loss in the event of an attack, because the solution is able to protect workloads that may be compromised as the attack is moving laterally across the environment to reduce how much time has passed between the last backup and the current attack. So a reduction of data loss. In addition, we're going to be able to identify sensitive data within snapshots. And so these two elements, reducing data loss and providing context about what kind of data is within those snapshots, is going to add value to XDR. So let's talk about XDR in general, and then we'll talk about how it integrates with Cohesity. Now, XDR is drawing from a lot of different data feeds across your IT landscape. This could be endpoints, network devices, servers, many different types of machines feeding into XDR. XDR is going to provide context about alerts you're receiving, and it's going to try to do correlation so you can better understand, do these three events from these different systems belong together? And then XDR, through orchestration, is going to help you remediate the attack more quickly through the ability to launch workflows directly from XDR. So what business needs is XDR trying to meet? Well, we want to try to detect sooner, because if we can detect sooner, we can reduce the blast radius and how many systems are potentially being impacted. We can also better understand, was the system that was impacted business critical, or was it not as important? And then we can prioritize in the event that we have a widespread attack. We can provide context about the types of systems that are being attacked and reduce the investigation time. And then once the attack is fully understood, accelerate the response through some of the Cohesity capabilities that I'm going to speak about here. Really, we're going to have more insight into what is being compromised, when is being compromised, how it's being compromised, and then the actions that I need to take to eventually remediate the situation. So Cohesity integrates with a variety of different types of systems, as I mentioned. The telemetry is coming in from endpoints, from network, from servers, and you're going to be able to take action using automation workflows directly within the platform. So now let's talk about Cohesity-specific integration with XDR. But first, I want to speak also a little bit about event correlation. Now, SOCs can be very noisy, meaning you have events coming in from a variety of different systems that I touched on. And seeing the forest for the trees could be difficult. Maybe you have a firewall event, you have an endpoint event. How do you put that all together? How do you know that this corresponds to the same attack? Well, the one way you do that is through alert correlation with XDR. And it's able to say, okay, these three events seem to correspond to the same event, and we're going to be able to map the attack chain using MITRE tactics. This gives your SOC a lot of context that they will need when they then go on to remediate the attack. So how do we stitch Cohesity together with XDR? Well, again, XDR is going to do the detection, the initial ransomware detection based on events that are coming in from across the environment. It's then going to create that complete view of the incident. Where is Cohesity's role in this? Well, what XDR is going to be able to do through its automation is trigger backup snapshots of the machine that's getting compromised, as well as machines in its proximity. And that's going to do two things. It's going to preserve forensic evidence of the machine being compromised, but it's also going to prevent the machines in its proximity from having an out-of-date backup. So before the attack spreads, we'll have a newer backup of the machines in proximity to the compromised machine, which, when you go to recover, means you'll have less data loss. The other thing that we're going to be able to do is, through our DataHawk product, is classify the data within the snapshots that XDR is making us aware of. So for instance, we can say, okay, that machine contained sensitive data, or that machine did not. And in that way, we'll be able to know where we should focus our attention for the remediation. Maybe we need to recover the sensitive data first on the VMs where it was present. So let's drill in a little more detail on how this workflow looks like. So once again, Cisco XDR is going to detect the ransomware through the telemetry that's coming in from across the environment. It's then going to create an incident and correlate all those events. At this point, a workflow is going to launch, and this is where it talks to Cohesity via API, specifically Cohesity Data Protect. Cohesity is going to take a snapshot of the impacted VM, as well as any VMs in its proximity, for those two reasons: for forensic purpose for the compromised VM, as well as to create a newer backup of all the VMs in proximity. The next thing it's going to do is, through our Datahawk product, is classify the data on those VMs. That way I'll know, did the attacker gain access to anything sensitive, and what is the order in which I need to plan my remediation. Sensitive systems, important data can precede less sensitive, less important data. The other thing I can do is, once Cohesity has fed that data back to XDR, now I can launch the recovery through XDR automation to initiate the restore of the impacted objects. Now, maybe I don't want to do this directly back to the production environment. I likely need to do clean room remediation first, but this gives me a good starting point, and maybe I can have XDR orchestrate the recovery into the clean room before I recover back to production. But the idea here is we go all the way from incident detection, we provide context about what's happened, and then we give the SOC the ability to recover quickly. So just to wrap things up, some of the takeaways from today's presentation: the faster you can recover, the less the business impact and the less the financial impact. So every second we're able to save through a more efficient integration, the better. XDR is going to provide that context, and then Cohesity is going to provide additional speed of restoration through our instant mass restore capability. And this is an example of how you can bring together best-in-breed capability from a SOAR vendor and a data protection, data security vendor for a more comprehensive ransomware response strategy. So thanks very much for attending today's presentation. And now we're going to take questions. I'm also going to be joined by my colleague, Jonathan, to take any questions that may come in. So thanks very much.
Alrighty, thank you so much. That was great. And yes, we're going to have Jonathan come in the mix here in just a quick second. I do want to point out we have our final poll of the day up here. So if you're looking for any additional information about Cohesity, just pop on in there and let us know what you are looking for. Data sheets, white papers, pricing details, a personal demo, whatever it might be, the Cohesity team will pop in and get that for you after today's EcoCast. So with that, Stephen, are you ready? Jonathan, are you ready?
Ready.
Alrighty. I think, here we go, Jonathan. Jonathan, are you there live?
I believe so, but you tell me.
Yes, I hear you now, so that's great.
Excellent.
Perfect. So yeah, let's roll into some questions. Again, great presentation. And then I'll kind of let you two decide if one of you wants to take a question or if you both want to kind of pipe in, and we'll go from there. So first questions I've got here in the queue is, how long does it take for Cohesity to create a snapshot of a machine once XDR triggers a workflow?
Yeah, so that happens almost immediately. XDR is going to kick off the orchestration, and then immediately Cohesity Data Protect is going to take a snapshot. And that's important because there's not a lot of delay between the initial detection by XDR and then the snap being taken by Cohesity.
Okay, excellent. So speedy. Okay, next question I've got here is, how do we make sure that the snapshot being recovered, just kind of linked to that one, doesn't have malicious binaries present on it?
Sure. So Cohesity has the ability with our Datahawk product to scan for specific indicators of compromise. These are done through Yara rules, and we have a built-in threat feed, or you can bring your own Yara rule if you already know what you're scanning for. So we would recommend doing one of these scans and then recovering the workload to a clean room. The security team might want to do additional remediation at that point, but we can provide the initial scan that says, okay, this backup looks clean, go ahead and proceed with the rest of the remediation.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, next one here is about the Cisco and Cohesity integration. So they're asking, what are the prerequisites, if any, to leverage Cisco XDR with Cohesity?
Sure. So, of course, you'll need XDR on the Cisco side, and Cohesity has two products that integrate with XDR. One is Data Protect for the backup elements I spoke about today, and then the other is Data Hawk for the data classification elements that I spoke about today. So, to leverage the entire workflow, you would need both Cohesity Data Protect and Cohesity Data Hawk.
Okay, perfect. That answers it. Great. Next up, we're firing through these. I hope you don't mind, but I figure we've got quite a few. So next what I've got is, what is the role of data classification in a ransomware response scenario?
Sure, yeah, the role is twofold. First, you want to know if the attacker got access to something sensitive, because we hear about data exfiltration attacks. Oftentimes, it's not just about encrypting the data, it's also about extorting the victim for disclosure of their sensitive data. And so if you know if the attacker got access to something sensitive, that can change how you respond. The other piece is you might want to prioritize systems for recovery, and systems with sensitive data on them, important data, might be recovered first and before less essential systems. So that's the second reason.
Okay, fantastic. Next here, this is from Davin. How does this solution differ from ransomware anomaly detection based on backup metadata?
Sure, yeah. So Cohesity has the ability to natively detect ransomware anomalies, but the XDR integration works a little bit differently, because XDR is pulling from the production machines and it's looking across the entire environment. So it could be endpoints, could be network monitoring, could be firewall, could be servers, but all those events are coming into XDR centrally, and that's being correlated. And the key here is you don't have to wait until after the backup completes to detect ransomware, so you're getting ahead of it, meaning you're reducing the potential impact.
Okay, excellent. So I think we've got one final question here in terms of timing. If people do want to get started out there with Cohesity, what would be the first step, or where should they, how should they reach out and get started?
Sure, yeah. So feel free to reach out to myself or Jonathan, and we'll connect you with your local Cohesity account team, and we'd be very happy to have a conversation about your specific data security requirements.
All right, amazing. Well, thank you both so much for being on today. It's been great, great presentation, great questions, and of course, we look forward to having you back sometime soon.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, gentlemen. All right, and with that, that is our fifth and final team here on today's amazing EcoCast. If you are interested in getting a little more information right away, click out that handouts tab and get the Cohesity Cisco system overview on how to automate ransomware response and accelerate data recovery. It's in a PDF format, so you want to grab that now. You may not be able to find it online later. And that said, you should probably hop over and get any and all handouts there from our 5 teams today, because we are about to wrap up today's EcoCast. That said as well, I'm going to close out this final poll here. So thank you for being so active with polls, with questions. It's been a really great event today. And I do have one final gift, one final prize, if you will, to give away. And that is the third and final $300 Amazon gift card. And again, you do need to be live and present and lucky to win. So our third and final gift card is going out to Alec Milner from New Mexico. Huge congrats to you, Alec rather. And just to recap, our 3 lucky winners from today are Christopher Freeman from Illinois, Edgar Sanchez from Texas, and Alec Milner from New Mexico. Thank you all so very much. Congratulations. And as always, we will be in touch about claiming your prizes after the webinar. And do not forget, you may be a lucky winner for one of those $50 Best Question gift cards. So thank you for all the thoughtful and timely questions. If you are on the webinar today and you would like to chat with us about presenting on a future summit, EcoCast, or MegaCast webinar, we would absolutely love to hear from you. You can reach out via email at connect@actualtechmedia.com. And with that, on behalf of the entire Actual Tech Media team, I do want to thank our speakers from KnowBe4, Okta, Rubrik, Automux, and Cohesity for making this EcoCast possible. And a special thank you to all of you for attending the EcoCast today. You've asked some great questions and really creating great engagement in this community. This has been such a fun conversation and a great way to think ahead in a world of evolving tech, growing data, and augmenting security needs. Employing software and automation to keep us ahead of the curve is truly a requirement. So thanks for being here, and thanks for thinking about all of this. I hope you've gotten some interesting ideas and tips. I hope you feel a bit more informed or equipped to tackle and implement some of these opportunities at your organization. And most of all, I hope you had fun with me today. And before you do take off, be sure to mark your calendars and come back to join us tomorrow, actually, for work from home, return to office, hybrid, empowering and protecting workers wherever they live. I will also be your host with the most tomorrow. So if you are back to hear my silky tenor vibes, I don't know what I'm saying, but I'd love to see you back. So it is tomorrow at 12 Eastern or 9 a.m. Pacific, same time, same place. Hope to see you all again soon. And until then, have an absolutely magical rest of your day. Cheers.